So that's fine. Yeah.
I'll just pause it for now.
So we invite you. Today's focus is on stories that explore independence. We welcome both tellers and listeners. Chetan reminded us that today was the day that Martin Luther King made his speech of I Have a Dream. It was a speech that was within his being for some time, but came into its fullness on this day in 1963. Storytellers, something that's unique about Storytellers is that we encourage lots of people to tell stories. And we are all available to help each other learn and tell stories. Peter provides opportunities in groups and as individuals to learn and work with stories. So another thing about this is that when we tell a story, we are actually encouraging our listeners to go and look at the original story. In 12 minutes, we cannot do full justice to what the story is. So in telling a story, we are inviting everybody to look at the original story and to understand where the author is coming from. So for today's conversation, the way we are going to use it is we are going to have the teller tell a story. We will take a few minutes to absorb the story. Remember what caught your attention and the crux of the matter. Then we will have a conversation on that story immediately after the story. Then we will ask the teller to tell us what her connection or his connection with the story is. All four tellers today are women, so it will be her connection. And the questions have been prepared by the tellers themselves. So let's start. And our first story is being told by Mukul. It's The Assignment. It was written by Sadat Hassan Manto. He has a huge collection of stories, 72 collections of stories, a novel. He had a series of 5 series of radio plays, etc. So Mukul, The Assignment by Manto.
Yeah. Thank you, Mary. It began with sporadic incidents of stabbing and looting, and soon became a full-fledged violent situation. Even homemade bombs were being used. But the people from Amritsar were not that perturbed. After all, these things had been happening over the past few weeks. They came and they went. This was the pattern, and they'd learned to adjust to it. Maybe a week or 10 days of violence, and then everything would be back to normal. But what they realized was this was not the case now. Violence grew both in intensity and frequency. Soon, Hindus began to leave for safer areas, and Muslims did vice versa. But they all said, this is temporary. We're just locking up our homes for the time being. Surely things will be normal and we'll be back. Retired Judge Mia Abdul Hai lived in a 3-storied house with his small family. He had a young son, Basharat, of 11, a daughter, Sugra, of 17, and an old retainer, Akbar, who for all practical purposes was of no use really. Professor Judge Hai was a cautious man. He knew nothing would happen, but one never knows. So he had stocked up on a lot of grain. His daughter Sugra was not so confident. and did not share in her father's optimism. Whenever she'd go up to the terrace of their large house, she'd see fires burning everywhere. The fire brigades bells rang from one end of the city to another, dousing fires. After some time, there were so many fires that they couldn't be doused. She saw smoke rising here and smoke rising there, and it getting worse by the day. Other people had come to the terrace to look as well. When would this end, she wondered, and she was frightened. She came down and told her father very softly, Abba, let's shift to Sharifpur. So many of our people from this area have gone there. What nonsense, said Judge Sahab. It's going to be perfectly fine. You know this happens often. But some of her fears were transmitted to her brother, Basharat, who was only 11 and had started sitting next to his father's bed day and night. Soon power and water was cut. Poor Sugra was totally frightened. She didn't know what to do. And to make matters worse, Judge Sahab suffered a stroke. His entire left side was paralyzed. Sugra was at her wit's end. She really, really didn't know what to do. To whom should she turn? Where should she go? She heard Akbar coughing, and she went up to look him up and said, Why are you lying in your bed? You should be downstairs helping us. You know how ill Judge Sahab is, and there you are just lying in your bed pretending you have asthma. In the olden days, servants used to give their lives for their masters. So saying, she went back down. But she felt bad. She felt quite bad at having said what she did, for Akbar has been an old retainer with them. She went to her brother Basharat and called him and said, Father's condition is deteriorating. You must go out and get some help. Basharat went out, but he came back almost immediately, face pale with fear. What happened? She asked him. He hugged her, and she hugged him in return. What happened? I saw a dead man on the street, his body covered with blood, and there were thugs roaming around, he said. He was really scared. Sugra hugged him, happy that he was back, safe and sound. Who should she turn to? From the terrace, she could see that all the shops were shut. Dr. Ghulam Hussein's dispensary hadn't opened in quite a while, and nor had Dr. Goridat Mal. Both had put down their shutters. There was nobody on the streets to whom she could turn for help. She went back to the terrace. It was the day before Eid. She looked around and she saw the same fires and so many people on the terrace, looking out at the fires maybe, or for what? She didn't know what to do. She looked to the sky to see if she could see the moon. No, she couldn't. And she thought of the Eids of previous days and what fun it had been and how many people there were in the house and the food and the friends and the relatives. Everything was so nice. Everything, there was joy everywhere. What happened today? What can she do? What was the way out? She was desperate, poor girl. Just then, she saw the moon peering from between the clouds. And she went down on her knees and prayed and prayed hard that her father would get well soon, that Akbar would return and this madness around her would end. She got up. The air was rent with sounds of Allahu Akbar, Har Har Mahadev. She was truly frightened. She went downstairs. She hugged her brother. She pulled a chair and sat next to her father. She had actually moved her father's bed into the veranda where he could see a bit of the sky. She had in fact put some water on the veranda to cool the place because it was such a hot day. Her father motioned her to come closer. She bent her head and with his right hand, which was all right, Judge Sahab blessed her. There were tears in Sugra's eyes. Judge Sahab also couldn't control himself. The only one who was sad and a little angry was Basharat, for he didn't know what was going on. He went to look for Akbar, and found that the door was ajar. He went up quickly to his room. Akbar wasn't there, and he came and told his sister that Akbar had left. Sugra told her father. He said he will come back. He will. The ever optimist Judge Sahab. Just then there was a knock at the door. Who could it be at this time? The siblings looked at each other with fear. Judge Sahab motioned to Sugra to go and see who it was, but she wouldn't. She said to her brother, "You go and see." Basharat went to the door. He peeped through a little crack in the door. He came back running, his face white, and said to his sister, "It's a Sikh. A Sikh!" she shouted. On the thin and ill lips of Judge Sahab, there was a slight smile. "Open the door," he said to Sugra. "It is Gurmukh Singh. You know of his annual visit, don't you? It's him." Gurmukh Singh was a very old Sikh. Many, many years ago, Judge Sahab had saved him, had acquitted him in a crime he did not commit really. And from then on, he was ever grateful to Judge Sahab. He would say, "Judge Sahab, here is a little gift for you." And every year before Eid, he'd bring a bag of noodles for Judge Sahab and his family. He would say, "7 generations of mine would not be able to repay you for your kindness." Oh no, Gurmukh Singh, that's all right. You don't have to come here every year. No, no, Judge Sahab, you are God. You're not a man. Sugra went to the door because the knock was repeated. Basharat mentioned to her to look from the little hole, the crack in the door. She did. Yes, indeed, it was a young Sikh. It wasn't Gurmukh Singh. She was frightened. And she asked, "Who is it?" "I am Santokh Singh, son of Gurmukh Singh. What brings you here?" "I've come to give you noodles that my father would give you every year." "And your father? Didn't he come?" she asked. "No, Sardarji died last month." "He died? I'm so sorry to hear that." "Yes, but on his deathbed, he said to me, 'Santokh, take a bag of our homemade noodles to Judge Sahab's house every year from now on.' And I made a promise to my father that I would do so every year. So here I am." Sugra was much moved. All her tension fell away and she began to cry. Tears ran freely down her eyes. She opened the door slightly. Santokh Singh gave her the bag of noodles and said, "Where is Judge Sahab?" She said, "He's ill." "What's wrong with him?" "Oh, he's had a stroke. "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that." Father would have been very sorry too. Really, really very sorry. And before Sugra could gather herself up to ask him to get a doctor, Santokh Singh had gone. She shut the door and came in with the bag of noodles. As Santokh Singh turned the corner, there were 4 men there, the edge of their turbans covering their faces. 2 had lit torches, one had a canister of kerosene, and the last one had some kind of a homemade bomb with him. One of them stepped forward and said to Santokh, "Sardarji, have you completed your assignment?" "Yes," said Santokh. "May we then proceed with ours?" he asked. "If you like," said Santokh. And he moved away. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mukul. Now we will go into a mode of just absorbing the story, the emotions, the characters, and the essence of the story. And in about a minute or so, we will discuss the story, have a conversation about it.
Why is he peeping and honking?
Hardika has put up on the board, on the screen, the questions that Mukul has raised. I'm going to read them out to you. One is, how would you like to have had the story end? What would you have liked? How would you like the story to end? The second question is, what do you think were the thoughts in Santosh's mind? The third one is the story really about betrayal? Thank you, Hardika. Let's keep the questions aside and let's talk about it.
केले नव्हता करून टाका लाव.
All right. Anybody's reflections? How would you like to have the story end? If you had to have it end, how would you have liked to have it end? Put up your hand, please. That's the simplest question of all. I would personally have liked to see the story end with something deeper on the positive end of life happening. I would like to have had some path forward, some escape perhaps. Anybody else?
Surya's posted on the chat box and Madhu's hand is up. So,
Okay, let's read Surya's. Would you read it for us, Shaheen?
yeah, sure. So Surya says for the first question, how would you like it to end? She says, on a happy note, hopefully. The second answer is Santosh is duty bound both to his father and to his community and is at a crossroad. And to the third question, is this a story of betrayal? She says no.
All right. Madhu, you had your hand up. Go ahead, tell us what your thinking is. What is this called? What is the story really talking to you about? Go ahead, Peter.
Okay, for me, I'm not ready to want to mess around with the ending of the story. The story has been given to you as it is, and we can have happy endings, though, given the general experience of that time, that was not going to be a happy ending. That was going to end in violence, bloodshed, and flames. But to just draw what I can from the story, for me, this is about honor. It's about somebody saying, this is a friend of mine, or this is a friend of my father's, and I've made a commitment, and I've got to go through with it. So you will have to wait. I mean, he can't stand in their way without, I mean, it's not his fight. It's the community that has taken a decision, but he convinces them that he has to complete whatever his father had instructed him to do, and he does that. And he has to live with the consequences of that as well. It's not that he gets off scot-free for, like saying that this man was a friend of my father's either. So for me, this part was about honor and keeping up one's commitments.
Anybody else? Any thoughts?
Madhu's hand is up. Madhu, you can speak, please. Okay, if anybody else, I think she's probably struggling with the technical part of the.
Okay.
So,
Shraddha wrote in the chat box that the story writer is a master. Master can do whatever he or she feels like doing, and so I don't believe in changing the story. I think there her thoughts match with yours, Peter.
Yeah.
And I think the power of that story is really to shake us up and see that, what is really taking place. Mukul, how would you talk about the connection you have to the story?
Yeah. While trying to select one story for today, I read many, as would other people. But this story I connected with immediately, because on the one hand, you had the innocent and trusting family, and on the other, the anticipated brutality, bestiality that they didn't know would follow. What further strengthened my resolve was when I told this story to a friend of mine and her husband immediately said to me, "You always pick on a pro-Muslim story." And I was aghast. I said, "No, it's just a story. It could be with any community, this or that. And it just captures the madness of that period. It could be Hindu, Sikh, Muslim. It's just somebody who trusted it." He said, "No, but they committed so much more violence against us." So then I didn't say anything, and I resolved that this is the story I'm going to keep with. Now, if we go by the fact that Santokh betrayed these people, the family, if we go with that, then another thing struck me. In my research in the in the 2 slums that I researched last year about relationships between Hindus and Muslims, I found that those who'd migrated a generation ago and the generation just after that had very close relations, but their children didn't, because their children were like any other urban children. Even if they were next door, they were busy with their own things. So they were completely indifferent to them. So we have either to say that they were indifferent because they were not communally sensitive, or they were indifferent just because it was a process of urbanization. And some would say it would be the first, but many others would say it could be the latter also. So I was just thinking that this next generation, that is Santokh Singh's generation, did it feel so strongly? I disagree with Peter slightly, because I think Santokh did the right thing in giving the bag to this family, just as he promised his father. But what happened after that was something, and what he could do after that or would do is not something he promised his father. So there he could have very well been brainwashed, or have moved away from people of another community. Anything could have happened. So that's why I chose those questions, and I chose this story.
Thank you.
May I?
Yeah, sure, Vinita.
Thank you. I feel that maybe, just as a maybe, we don't know what's in anyone's head, especially Manto's. Maybe he might have suggested helping them escape, but when he finds out that Judge Saab has had a stroke, that possibility goes away. And where is the time for you to, try and separate the family or suggest at this moment that, listen, let me help the two of you escape. They're not going to leave their father to die alone, or who's going to, I mean, this is just such a mess there. But perhaps if Judge Sahab had been up and about, who knows, that might have been a possibility.
But Vinita, the four men were standing at the corner of the street. They would be able to see everything in case he decided to help these people.
I don't know, maybe there was a back door. We're just speculating.
All right, let's hold our discussion here. Thank you very much and move on to our next story. This story was written in Urdu and then translated into Mukul's story. The assignment was written in Urdu. The next story is going to be told by Khushali. And the story is Yamuna Bhatti's mother by Mahashwata Devi. This is written in Bengali and was then translated into English. Khushali, please come forward.
Thank you, Mary. And I've been calling it Jamna Bati, so I think I will.
No, you please say it the way you would, because I am not a Bengali expert.
Neither am I. Yes, so the story is Mahashweta Devi's story. The story is called Jamna Bati's mother, and I'll be telling it from the first person point of view as the mother. I've been told that Jamnabati is an endearing name. But no one ever told me that my child was wholly expendable. My Jamnabati is just 2 years old. And if she wouldn't have been born, it wouldn't have mattered to anyone anywhere. But my happy little child doesn't know this. She's glad to have made it into this world. My husband cleans bottles at a chemist, and I go from shop to shop selling incense sticks. Jamnabati is a thin, dark-skinned girl with curly wisp of hair. My husband too is thin and timid, and he wears an amulet on one of his arms. I too wear amulet on both my arms. Someone once told me, Jamnabati is a very poetic name. Who chose it? I smiled and said that it was her aunt. And I was a little embarrassed, but uh, the name was chosen by our part-time maid, Rakhali. And of course, Jamnabati calls her Didi. So isn't Rakhali just like Jamnabati's aunt? Rakhali takes care of Jamnabati when I have to go to work. Exactly at noon, when I come home, I hear Rakhali singing in a off-key tone, Jamnabati, Sarasbati, blessed siblings these. The sandal flower goes pitter-patter on the buckle trees. The singing definitely is a little off-key, but I enjoy it. So one of the days while Rakhali was singing this, she said, isn't Jamnabati a beautiful name? And that's how the name stuck. I wake up in the morning and I immediately, in a hurry, have to feed Jamnabati barley with some powdered milk. And I eat some leftover rotis from the previous night. I have to go to work at 7 a.m. and my husband leaves at around 9 a.m. Rakhali finishes her work from all the other households and tries to come as soon as possible to be with and take care of Jamnabati. And this is the reason why I pay an extra 2 rupees to Rakhali. And this is also the reason why money does not collect in our coin pot. Now, in the evening, I take Jamnabati to the bazaar. There is a toy shop right around the corner. And while passing through it the other day, Jamnabati looked at it and she saw a doll over there and she pointed it at and said, want that. The doll had red lips, rosy cheek, and golden hair. She was shining and had glowing, dazzling skin in the bright light. The doll cost around 9 rupees 60 paise. I went home and checked our coin pot. We had around 6 rupees in it. So I decided to make some extra money by making paper bags and selling them. Slowly, the savings reached up to 8 rupees. And I decided that I'll buy that doll for Jamnabati. I've been telling Jamnabati, just couple of more days and I will get you that doll. I imagine my Jamnabati playing with that doll. And that same night, I had a reckless dream. I imagined that our coin pot was full with money. And I bought that doll for Jamnabati. In the dream, my husband said to me that that money was all our savings and you spent it on a doll. I remember replying very boldly, yes, I did. But then Jamnabati came down with a fever and the fever lingered. So we took her to the doctor. The doctor asked us, what do you feed her? I said, some barley and roti and rice. The doctor said, can a child grow up on just barley? So then my husband asked, what should we do? So he prescribed us a diet for Jamnabati. And while coming back from the doctors, I asked my husband, so then what exactly do I feed her? My husband said, we need to feed her 23 nutrients that are there in that container, that come in a container, just like they show it in the movies. How much does it cost? He said 14 rupees. As we went home, I opened the coin pot and I gave him 8 rupees from that. And I asked if he could manage 6. His eyes were moist, but he took the money. And then once again, I started dreaming about buying Jamnabati the doll. But the doll wasn't there in the shop anymore. In a way, I was relieved because seeing the doll would have made me distressed. As long as I can imagine that I'm going to buy the doll, I can also imagine playing with it, cradling it, caressing it, and the doll would just be like my Jamnabati. And I would imagine my Jamnabati like the doll, fair, with rosy cheeks, red lips, smiling. And that's how I started saving more money. And to save more money, Rakhali used to get me betel nuts. And I started chopping the betel nuts at night. So I would make extra money to get Jamnabati, a doll. Then one of the days, I also saw a red dress in the market. And I decided that I'll get the red dress for Jamnabati. The dress cost around 12 rupees. But I decided that I will burn the lamp late at night and I will do it. If only I have a if only I have a goal in mind, can I always, work hard for my Jamnabati. Now I imagine my Jamnabati in that beautiful red dress. And I also imagine myself and my husband in beautiful clothes bought from proper shops. So now I was dreaming about getting that dress and the savings had reached 9 rupees. But once again, my Jamnabati fell ill. This time, her illness was severe. The doctor said that her lungs were becoming weak and her liver was in bad shape and the marrow in her bones was also not forming properly. My husband asked, do we give her a tonic? The doctor nodded and prescribed us a tonic. While coming back once again, I asked my husband, what is wrong with our daughter? Why is she falling sick so much? My husband said, don't you see how little she weighs when you take her on her lap? A Jamnabati is malnourished. We need to feed her with eggs, milk, good fruits, vegetables. We bought the tonic for 11 rupees. And this time, it was my husband who chose to break the coin pot first. When he came home and informed Rakhali of this, Rakhali just said that this was not true. If this was true, then why would the Babu's kids fall sick? They get to eat all of these uh, good food. And Rakhali said that she'll just get some water from the Ganga and give Jamnabati that, and she should be fine. Of course, how can you expect expect the girl to be all roly-poly when her parents are themselves so thin. That is true. Nowadays, I don't dream of the red dress and I don't dream of the doll. All I think about is to get good food for my Jamnavati. I dream about getting her milk and fish and all the good food that is out there. But I don't understand why the money doesn't get collected in my coin pot. I feel angry. Why can't I have the money to buy this food for my Jamnavati? Why can't she look healthy? And then my anger is just increasing. I have questions about why this is happening to us. I don't understand. And one day, our employer, my employer notices this in me. I'm usually very timid and shy, but he sees that anger in my eyes and he asks me, "Oh, what happened to you?" I say that my daughter is sick and we need to feed her. What exactly do you need to feed her? We need to give her a variety of foods, but we can't afford it. We don't have the money. So, right. He gives me 10 rupee note and says that he's barely making ends meet too. I take the 10 rupee note and I put it in the coin pot and I make sure that I'm not going to spend it one ever again. I'm going to save a lot of money so that our family, Jamnabati, my husband and I, can eat eggs, milk, and fish every day. And all of us will look healthy. But one day the world comes crashing down on us. Rakhali now no longer sings that familiar song. This is the day when the doctor visits us and we don't go to him. A lot of people gather around in our courtyard. Some known tenants, some unknown tenants. Rakhali's wailing is piercing the quiet of the morning. Her father and I are crouching down looking at Jamnabati. Jamnabati, wake up. Give us a smile. But Jamnabati doesn't wake up. She doesn't give us a smile. Her face is flushed after being in dengue fever for quite a while. And while going to the cremation ground, Jamnabati is in her father's arms. I walk alongside Rakhali and her nephew. Her nephew says, "We will need money for the wood, Mashi." I ask, "How much money?" He says, 10 rupees. I say, "Go and get it from the coin pot. There are exactly 10 rupees." That was Jamnabati's mother by Mahashweta.
Thank you very much, Khushali. Please take this time to absorb the story. Remember the characters, the situations, and the emotions that played through, and what the crux of the whole story was about. So let's take a minute to absorb the details of the story. Remember and absorb. Harika, would you please put the questions up? Khushali's question to us is, how would you react if you were to see Yamunabati's parents today? Would you ignore them? Offer them a small amount of money. Do not give them anything, as you're already contributing to something worthwhile and long-lasting. Thank you, Hartika. So let's go back to gallery view and invite reflections from anybody. Is this a reflection of life today? Where do you see it happen? What caught your attention? What is the fact that Mahashweta wants us to see? Mahashweta Devi wants us to see. Please feel free to talk.
It's just heartbreaking. What does one say?
What is heartbreaking about this? What is the heartbreaking part of this? Anybody?
I would say every time the mother tried to save up to give a little bit of tiny luxury to the child, she was not able to do it. And she was saving up for something which could be a non-essential thing for the child, but ended up spending on the essential thing. And the end was, it was something which she wouldn't have thought ever, that maybe she would be using those 10 rupees for that while she was planning to save that. Also, for me, I see it in this way, that maybe if she could have done a little bit of adjustment and done a small portion of that on the nutritious food of what she was saving. Suppose she is trying to gather 8 rupees. Maybe if she spends 1 rupee on the nutritious food for the child, things might have been different. Obviously, this is my perspective. She was saving for a frog or a doll or anything, but yeah, that is something that I feel it could have changed.
Nita, you want to say something?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to, the only word that is coming to me, there's a Hindi word called lachari, helplessness. I mean, that's what I'm struggling with the story, because it's very hard hitting. And I mean, where's the freedom in here for those poor parents? And it's difficult. It's very difficult, because when you're there in the moment, how the mind works is very, very different from in retrospect how we see things. So yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Any other reflections? Go ahead, Shaheen.
Like Vinita said, it's so sad. And how do you get out of that space of lachari that Nita also talked about? This was a mother, and she had motherly dreams for her little darling. And fate, or whatever you may call that, had other plans. And when you think about it, there are so many people out there who have these dreams, and fate has other plans for them. And that's all that I can think about at the moment.
What if we said we created that situation?
Possible, yes. Oh, sometimes we do create these situations for ourselves, like the first person who spoke, Hardika, said that maybe she should have thought about her child's nutrition instead of saving the money. So yes, that's a possibility, but it didn't happen.
Any other thoughts? Any other reflections?
Also, I wouldn't pick any of the three options offered.
Go ahead, Vinita.
Yeah, I
Jesh?
wouldn't. Yeah, sorry, someone else wants to speak.
No, go on.
Yeah, I would neither ignore nor feel that. I think if I were to meet them, I would probably just sit down, hold the mom's hand. If some words come, maybe talk to her, just hold her hand and sit with her. There's a million options not offered in that as answers in that question.
Okay.
So
Any-
I see Somnath's
Yes,
hand
Somnath.
up, and there's somebody in the chat box. So Jeshi's written helplessness. That's the word that comes to mind.
Somnath.
I'm reminded of a couplet by written by Ghalib, which goes, हजारों ख्वाहिशें हैं ऐसी कि हर ख्वाहिश पे दम निकले, बहुत निकले मेरे अरमान लेकिन फिर भी कम निकले. That I have thousands of desires. Rita has her hand up. Rita, can you unmute yourself, please, and then speak? Yeah,
yes.
Good.
Yes. Out of those choices, as Vinita said, I would actually sit down if I could. The same thing with the mother. And first of all, of course, I would ask her to bare her heart to me about what she feels and what she must have gone through. But at the same time, I know that she probably will have another child. So then I will ask her to have another perspective. If something like this develops in her life, then maybe instead of getting all those toys and doll, which comes with a lot of emotions, she could, as Hardika said, maybe feed her good food, which would have been more useful. I know money is a big problem. It's a paucity of money that makes us take these decisions. Sometimes right, sometimes wrong. But I guess ultimately it's the choices we make. I don't know where the freedom is, the freedom of choices, right? When we say freedom, where is the freedom in this sort of story? What freedom are we talking about?
Good question. Good question. But this story does raise questions at many levels. It's not just at the home. It's at the city level. It's at the policy level. It's at the community level. If we choose to explore, to really choose a different way to handle reality in a way.
Yes.
Shall we move to our third story? This is written by R.K. Narayan. He died in 2001. He was born in 1906. But a major influence in his childhood was his grandmother, who would tell him stories of all kinds. And he didn't do too well in school, but he loved writing, and he wrote in English. So one was from the northwest of India, another was from the east of India, and this is from the south of India. We have Vinita telling us the story. The screen is yours, Vinita.
Thank you, Mary. Nobody ever knew that the town of Malgudi had a municipal council. Not till independence. Then independence, such jubilation from Himalaya to Cape Comorin. And that time, the chairman of the Malgudi Municipal Council said, we must also do something to celebrate. So for the first time, the streets were swept, the drains were cleaned, flags were hoisted, so much music, procession, everything. He felt very good. First time he had done something as the chairman of the municipal council. Before this, he made all his money supplying blankets to the army. As a matter of fact, he used a lot of that profit to become chairman of the municipal council. Now you must be wondering how I know this. I'm a journalist. My job is to send 10 published inches of news to the upcountry newspaper. Now in Malgudi, what news to give? Some idealized made-up version of municipal affairs I would make up and give every month for 20 rupees, 10 inches of news. That is why everybody in the municipal council liked me. I could come and go freely. I knew all the inside news. So for the first time he did something, he felt great. But after 1 week, any excitement dies down. And he said, we have not done enough. He wanted to do something more. He liked the feeling of doing work, So he called an extraordinary meeting of the municipal council and harangued all of them. And the municipal council passed a resolution. They are going to nationalize the names of all the streets and the parks and everything. So immediately, Coronation Park became Hamara Hindustan Park. No problem. But when it came to the streets, 8 ward councillors are fighting. I want Mahatma Gandhi Road in my ward. 6 fellows are fighting the road in front of my name. My house has got to be called Nehru Road. No, Netaji Subhash Bose Road. They were so angry, I thought they will come to blows. But actually, they all went mad. They passed a resolution that up to 4 roads in the town of Malgudi could have the same name. Democracy is okay, but how far will it go? So guess what? Chitra Road, Market Road, Vinayak Mudali Street, everything went away. Everything is now new names. Minister, Deputy Minister, and member of Congress Working Committee. After 10 days, the whole town was in a chaos. Letters are going to all kinds of addresses. Nobody can say how to come to my house, how to come to my office. But the chairman felt gratified. Second time he had done work. Work can also be an addiction. He wanted to do even more. Now at the corner of Lolly Extension and Market, there was one statue. Just nobody bothered what statue and what for. Suddenly, the chairman remembered this is the statue of one Sir Frederick Lolly. But the colony is now called Gandhinagar. How can we have the statue of Frederick Lolly there? The municipal council passed a resolution, we must remove it. The next morning, they went to make an inspection. 20 feet high that statue was on a solid pedestal. I don't know how many tons of lead. It would not be easy to remove it. But the chairman was even firmer. He will remove it because some facts had come to light about this Frederick Lolly. He was a tyrant, I tell you. He was a combination of Attila the Hun and Nadir Shah, and he had the craftiness of Machiavelli. He used to raise entire villages to the ground if there were a murmur of protest from them. He never allowed any Indians to come in front of him unless they came and bended knee, So the municipal council passed a resolution, they have to remove this statue. They asked for quotations. 1 dozen contractors sent, lowest was 50,000 rupees to remove the statue and put it in the municipal office. They didn't even know where they would keep it. It was such a big statue. I was sitting with the chairman. He said, listen, they are giving such inflated figures. You don't charge me for removing the statue. You simply take it. I will let you take it for free. You can sell it. It is metal after all. Till then I thought the municipal council members had gone mad. Suddenly, I went mad. I said, for 5,000 rupees, I'll be able to remove the statue. I know all these contractors are always sending, inflating figures. 3 tons of metal I can sell for 6,000. Nice profit, tell me. But why should I sell it as scrap? I think the British Museum would be very interested in buying this. I can make such a lot of money. I can give up my job as a journalist. Okay, I'll do it, I said. So the municipal council passed a resolution allowing me to remove that statue. I went to my father-in-law, borrowed money, told him you'll get a great rate of interest. Don't worry about it. Immediately went and hired 50 coolies, hardened fellows. For 1 week, they chopped at the statue morning to night. I was shouting instructions at them. Nothing happened. I thought, oh my God, I'm going to just become bankrupt. Then I went to the district magistrate, got a few sticks of dynamite, cordoned off the area, blew up the statue. It was very nice to see. Haughty fellow brought down. I don't want to talk in detail, about how I had to get one carriage built, how many bullocks I had to hire, how we managed to lift that statue onto that carriage, how everybody is loitering around simply making useless comments. I had to go on shouting at these fellows to move that carriage forward. Blistering sun, I tell you. Every corner of the road, every turn, it was miserable. By nightfall, we were nowhere near my house. But I thought I must stay the night with the statue. Just in case somebody harms it, steals it, then what would I do? Anyway, after 3 days, we reached my house. I had already emptied the house, no? So I put the head and shoulders inside my entryway and drawing room. And through the open doorway, the rest of the statue and out into the road. My neighbors are very nice people, in Kabir Lane, they're not complaining and all that. So they just went around the obstruction. The municipal council sent me a resolution thanking me. Immediately, I wrote 10 published inches about the statue and I sent it off to the newspaper. 1 week later, the chairman came running to me in agitation, shoving a sheaf of telegrams in my face. What have you done? What have you done? Look, all these are telegrams from the historical societies of the country. They are all telling me this Sir Frederick Lawley is a great man. This is not the rascal who used to be in Warren Hastings' time. He is the guy who settled here after the mutiny. He cleared the jungles. He founded the town of Malgudi. He's the first guy to establish cooperative society in India, the first guy to establish canal system in India, the first guy to tell the British Parliament, please involve Indians in Indian administrative affairs, the first guy to do everything. You know how he died? He died saving the lives of villagers in the Sarayu flood. I want the statue back. I was so angry. I said, impossible. I want this statue. I like collecting statues of national heroes. You are not going to get the statue. I don't know how the newspapers heard about this. And in 1 week, people were shouting slogans in front of my house saying, what is this fellow? Who does he think he is? No sense of shame, no nationalism. I told the chairman, listen, you just pay me the money I spent in removing the statue. You can have the statue. People said, what a rascal, good for nothing fellow. He's black marketeering even a statue of a great man like this. I was so angry. I put a placard in front of my house. Statue for sale, 2.5 tons of metal. Excellent offer for patriotic friend. Offers about 10,000 rupees will be entertained. I tell you, if Mahatma Gandhi had not taught non-violence, no, these people would have beaten me up. Anyway, in relays, they lay across my doorstep, one by one, shouting slogans, picketed my house, hoisting flags and all. It didn't bother me, pa. I'd already sent my wife and children to the village, to make place for the statue. Only I had to use the back door of the house to come and go and all that. Then suddenly, the municipal council sent me prosecution against Ancient Monuments Act, saying I have to give the statue back. I repudiated it, I tell you. For 6 months, we were enmeshed in all kinds of really bewildering legalities. And I thought, oh my God, when is this going to end? Legality was not a problem, but no place to keep such a big correspondence. After 6 months, the government sent a notice to the Municipal Council of Malgudi. What is your report on the statue? Huh? And I believe there are other lapses also by the Municipal Council. Maybe we should have fresh elections. I went out by the back door and met the chairman. I told him, listen, I think it is time you must make a grand gesture. Why don't you simply just buy my house? Okay. When you buy my house, the statue is already there. I will sell you the house at a reasonable price. You can say you are making a gift of this to the town of Malgudi. But there is no money, said the chairman to me. I told him, Let it be a personal gift, you know. You made all that money selling those blankets to the army. Make a grand gesture. You will get such a lot of press. People say, what a great man. And anyway, it will be much cheaper for you to buy my house and set up the statue here than to have a fresh elections, you know. We agreed upon a price. After 1 week, the chairman was really happy to read in the newspaper. The chairman of the Malgudi municipality has acquired a new property to install the statue of Sir Frederick Lawley, a grand gesture of patriotism and nationalism by a noble man who will continue to steer the township of Malgudi in the coming days. And he said, now we will have to rename Kabir Lane Lawley Road because we have to make it, break down your house and make it a park. Lawley Road by R.K. Narayan.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's take a few minutes to absorb the story. Characters, words, scenery, emotions, and the crux of the story. Okay, Hardika, would you please put the questions up? Vinita has asked us to consider these questions. What did independence mean to the chairman of the municipal council? What did independence mean to the narrator? Do you see any parallels between the behavior of people in Malgudi and that of people today? And if yes, what are the parallels? Thank you, Hardika. Let's have reflections. What stood out for you? Who are the characters? Who remembers who the characters are? We have the statue called Frederick Lawley. Who else? Go ahead.
We have the journalist, of course.
Yes.
The journalist and the chairman and the manipulative ways that moves that town. Yeah.
Where did you find yourself giving yourself permission to laugh after the other two serious stories? Where did you find yourself giving yourself permission to laugh? Did you laugh?
Yes, I did. Yes, I held myself back. Otherwise, I would have guffawed in laughter. But it was her narration. It was splendid, Vinita's. And the story was even more, that R.K. Lakshman type of common man having a laugh at what is happening around him. So R.K. Narayan, of course, is a brilliant writer. And it's amazing how he can weave a simple story in a small town about this statue and into a huge issue. and yet turn it around and make us laugh about human foibles.
Have you seen any of this drama presented in anything around you, anywhere around you? Go ahead, Nita, you'll have a smile on your face. Say something.
So I just wanted to say all the time, nothing much has changed over the years since the time we have got our freedom. But I don't know if anybody ever thinks what freedom means. Is it more about self or is it about as a community? We, do we still feel that patriotism that earlier we used to have? I mean, during the struggle for freedom and what did the common man actually take it with them after we achieved? Did this, I mean, did people like the journalist or the chairman, did they think much beyond their own self, or was it just another change of power, basically? And are we free of ourselves? I mean, that's what I think of our own delusion.
And it feels like the
Power.
power and money were the propelling issues. And the name. Thank you very much, Vinita. I think people are relieved with your story. I'm not seeing many hands going up or any thoughts coming up. Somnath, do you want to say something?
No, I'm able to. I'm reminded the same thing about renaming. I've been in Bombay for a very long time. So, all this roads and everything else gets changed into some other road. So, Kettle Road gets changed to Veer Savarkar Marg, and I believe Fountain has got changed to something else. Fountain, the most iconic landmark which those who were in Bombay know about it, and even from our movies, I think people all around India would know about it. So yeah, this kind of drama of renaming and all those things that have seen that firsthand happening, and all this the what she spoke about, the fights happening amongst the municipal councillors. I didn't see that, but in the newspaper, we would keep on reading that somebody else wanted some name, somebody else wanted name after their grandparents or some uncle or some father or something. So yeah, that found that portion hilarious. And yes, under the undertone of the story has so much of depth of thought about the uh, what can I say? I'm just trying to struggle for a right word.
It raises big questions.
Yes, I can say that. Yes, it raises lots of questions about our own independence. Are we really independent, or are we, are we subservient to something? So we could be to a thought, to a person. We could be subservient to anything. So yeah, that was something that I felt as an undertone of the story.
Who are we subservient to? What do we really want? Okay, thank you.
Mary, I have two things to say, if I may.
Please do. Oh, I forget to ask you your connection to the story. Sorry.
And don't you know it? All credit to Mary. She was the one who very kindly sent me this story. And I think my next comment will, so thank you, Mary. Thank you very, very much. And my next comment will explain my connection after having received the story. That people at the helm don't really care what price, who, or the entire populace has to pay for their grand gestures, which make them feel good. And obviously, that is true today as well.
Thank you. That's very true. Thank you. Okay, to our last story. This is written, it's called If Only, and it's written by Vandana Kumar Jena. I didn't find any information on her, but Rita Chablani will tell us the story. Rita, the screen is yours.
Thank you, Mary. Good evening, friends. The name of the story is If Only. It was sent to me by Peter, suggested by Peter, and I somehow felt, yes, this is a story worth talking about, worth reading. So, If Only by Vandana. All stories should have a beginning, a middle, and an end. But I somehow strayed into the middle and left without knowing the end. It was a cataclysmic event, had a profound effect on me. In those 15 minutes, right at 3:45 p.m., as I stood flailing my arms in the middle of the road, trying to stop a passing car, any car, I grew up. Or should I say, actually, it all began at 11:30 a.m. on a Sunday morning. I rang the doorbell of Pratik's flat. You see, he's my boyfriend. I was all set to go for that movie, Kabhi Alvida Na Kehna. And I'm excited. I'm standing there ringing the doorbell, and I can get the smell of the rotten fish from the rubbish bin and the fragrance of asafoetida from his neighbor's house. Pratik opens the door. He's in his rumpled kurta pajama. Hair is all tousled. The remnants of his breakfast remain at the corner of his mouth, and he has ketchup on his kurta. I look at him and I get irritated. Pratik, what the hell? You're not ready. We're supposed to go for the movie. He looks at me rather sheepishly, runs his fingers through his ruffled hair. You see, that gesture at one time would have brought waves of tenderness from me. But today I'm getting irritated. I look at him and I say, you have forgotten. No, Vandita, please sit down. Don't get angry. I actually have a presentation. What presentation, Pratik? I refuse now to sit down today and cave in to your presentation technique. Every time you cancel the event, every time we have a program, you have this excuse, assistant manager. All you do is we have this carry out chicken rolls and Diet Coke. And then I sit and I watch on the video movies all by myself, and later on we wind up in bed. So he says, no, Vandu, try to understand. Please, only today I will carry out for you. Yes, chicken rolls and Diet Coke. Great. I'm not going to listen to you today. So I'm going to the movie alone. Women go to movie alone? No. I am going alone, and I mean it. So she walks up to the door, Vandita, unbolts the door and walks out. She's determined. Her heels clatter on the staircase, and she looks behind hoping he had followed her. But when she banged the door shut, you see what happened was that there were money plant pots lying on the ledge, and they all fell down on the ground and they got crushed. And she was happy for that because he had not followed her. Good for him. She hails an auto rickshaw and she arrives at the cinema hall, goes up to the counter purposefully and asks, the man looks at her, 2 tickets? No, 1. The man looks at her appraisingly and sneers at her. What? Women are not supposed to see a movie alone? But then she goes in and she waits. She pretends to look at her watch every now and then and looks towards the door and as though to pretend that she was waiting for an escort who let her down. Then the auditorium, the doors open, she goes in quickly and settles down on that corner seat. 15 minutes later, a young man comes up and asks her very softly, is the seat next to yours taken? She just signals to him and says no. He settles down and she slowly shifts to the other side of the chair and sits stiffly. Not a word did they exchange, but during interval, the man was sweet enough. He got up and he asked her, do you want anything? She said, of course, I want a bag of popcorn and Diet Coke. And that's what Pratik used to get for her. 15 minutes later, the young man returns with that popcorn, an extra large box of popcorn and Diet Coke, and hands it to her and whispers in her ears, 145 rupees. She glares at him. Pratik had never asked her for money. But well, this is not Pratik, so I have to give it to him. So she pulls out all the money she has in her wallet. And then she knows that she has to go to the nearest ATM after the movie was over. She's a student, you see. Movie gets over, 3:30 p.m. She rushes out and crosses the road and goes and stands at the deserted bus stop. She looks around and wonders, where are all the people gone? Does everybody have a car or what? She doesn't know which bus will take her to Model Town. That's the university. She wants to go there. She sees that man crossing the road and coming towards her. Hi, he says. She also says hi as though they are old buddies. She's so relieved to see him. So he says, what are you waiting for? Where do you want to go? She says, can you tell me the bus that goes to Model Town? He says, bus? No, mini buses. So they see a mini bus coming around the corner. He goes and stands in the middle of the road and starts flailing his arms, wanting that mini bus to stop. And here is where the cataclysmic event takes place. The bus drivers of Delhi, callous as they are, it doesn't stop. Instead, that guy comes and rams into him. And he goes flying and his head hits the lamppost and he falls down on the road like a ragged doll. She screams, she goes running towards him. He's bleeding. And that's where she stood on the road trying to stop, flag down some passing car. None stopped. Then she tried to find a cell phone in his pocket because she had to know who he was. She called the police, she called the ambulance. They came at once and the policeman, she accompanied the policeman in the ambulance to the hospital where, of course, the young man was declared dead. The policeman on the way to the boy's parents' home asked her, He was your boyfriend or what? She says, no, and told him the whole story. And he looked at her, wondering how she knew this young man. When they reached the constricted lane of the DDA flat in Munirka, there was a crowd already there. She made her way up to the house and saw his father, his mother, and a young woman standing there. They were all sobbing. She went and told the father, you know, in a way, I'm responsible for his death. If I had not asked him for that bus, he would not have gone and stood on the road for me. The father looks at her stony-faced and he says, you know, in the morning, if only I had not fought with him. We had a big argument. You see, he left his steady bank job and he tells me that I am joining this music reality show. Then the mother says, you know, I had such a big argument with him this morning. I told him, either you get married to now or that's the ultimatum. You have to. Then Neha, the fiancée, says, you know, this morning I was very upset with him. I told him that you have given up your job. I cannot marry you. I stood there and I started thinking that the man had come for the movie. Was it because Neha had rejected him? He came alone, sat down next to me, and didn't speak a word except for those 2-line sentences during the interval. Do you want something? And 145 rupees. Otherwise, the man had been sitting quietly, unlike other young men who'll come and try to, you know, make advances towards a woman sitting alone, a young girl sitting alone. So maybe he had the death wish. Maybe he went and stood in the middle of the road. And so she quietly gets up, watches the whole scenario, blames herself, feels guilty, comes down and starts making her way through the crowd. Then she overhears a neighbor say, you know, he was a manic depressive. And their family, you know, it runs in their family. And she continues walking and she keeps thinking that did Pratik, that was his name, did he have the death wish? One of his manic depressive episodes that he came and that was his death wish. Neha broke off with him. Was it a love match or an arranged match? And then she starts she feels whatever it was, but if only she had not asked him which bus goes to Model Town. If only, let's say, if only she had decided not to come for the movie alone. If only she had stayed at home with Pratik. If only she had agreed to those horrible chicken rolls and the diet Coke. If only she had sat down and watched some inane movie on the video. If only she could do something to heal the loss of the loved ones. Then she feels that she can't do anything. A life gone is a life gone. But maybe it gives her a clue that she has some untidy strands in her life that she could tie up and make her life one big whole, W-H-O-L-E. And she thinks about it and she says, yes, at 23, doing MPhil in the University of Delhi, she has a choice in her life to make decisions, her own decisions. Should she now give in to the security of marriage and marry Pratik and eat chicken rolls, Diet Coke, and watch movies for the rest of her life, all because she wants their relationship to have a sanctity and she needs security? Or is there another way out? No if onlys. Can she? The other way out is, should she be free? She decides, she picks up her cell phone and dials. If only by Vandana. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
We are running short of time. But also I'll ask Hardika to put up the questions up on the screen. Question 1 is, could you be quiet, please? What would it mean to give freedom to our loved ones to be who they are? What would it mean to give freedom to ourselves to be who we are? Rita, I am sorry we won't be able to have a long discussion, but tell us about the connection that you had with this story. What was the connection that made you choose the story?
Mary, you know, I think as a girl, as an Indian woman of my generation, all my life, everything was decided for me. I mean, marriage and what I should study. And so we impose them on our children too. We do not give them the freedom. I mean, I didn't get that sort of freedom. I've given it to my son because my son is an engineer and he's an MBA, and yet he's a singer and he acts in TV commercials and he wanted to follow his dreams. And I said to myself, yes, it is an out of the box career and doesn't fit into that model that society wants. And now it's 20 years and he's happy. He's very happy. And he has his responsibilities. He's, you know, he does all that. And I feel even today, relatives keep asking me, ये career कैसे इसने उठाया? He must have taken after you. You are a writer, a creative person. He did settle down in life. What is settle down in life? I don't understand. Why should we be told what to do all the time? Aren't we allowed to be grown up? So I grew up hearing that, and that is why this story resonated with me, that if this girl at 23, MPhil student, feels that she has the choice to make her decisions, you know, certainly I, as a woman of my age, even now I'm told what to do sometimes by well-meaning relatives, all in the, you know, should do and should not do category, quote unquote. Yes.
Thank you very much to all the listeners and to all the tellers. This was a delightful evening. I'm sorry we have to, but the real question for us that I want you all to work on and think about and perhaps even write stories about is, what does it mean to be independent? And thank you very much for a very fine evening. And there are myriads of people who have worked behind the scenes. And I'm extremely, anything like this takes a lot of effort. And I want to acknowledge that. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Hardika, also for handling all the
Thank
zooming.
you, Mary. Yeah.
Thank you, Hardika. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, Hardika, it was amazing. Oops. Somebody dropped something.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Hartika.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone. Good
Bye.
night. Good
Bye.
night.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye, Jayashree. Bye.
Have we stopped the recording? Acha, ho raha hai.
I'll just stop the recording.